Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I'm just going to introduce our speaker, and then I'll hand over the mic to her, inshallah, and we'll have time at the end for question and answers, inshallah. So welcome to today's session, Making the World a Better Place, one individual, one organization, and one community at a time. It's my honor and my pleasure to introduce our speaker, Magda Elkadi Saleh. She's the head of school of Bayan Academy in Tampa, Florida. And she has been an administrator in Islamic schools since 1992 and has been instrumental in their growth and development. Her strengths are in strategic planning, team building, and people empowerment. I'm also honored to introduce her because she's my younger sister, and she is a person that has changed a lot of people's lives, as an instructor, as a head of school, as a role model in the community. She has influenced so many people's life trajectories, and I'm really honored to be here to introduce her. She is a real superhero.
Assalamu alaikum. Good, we're going to start, inshallah. So everybody's familiar, I think, with the theme of this conference. What are your superpowers? And use your superpowers for social good. And I'm going to be quite honest, when it came out as the theme, I thought it was a little corny. I'm like, really? We're going to bring red capes and we're going to do Superman? And then something happened at our school that made me realize that maybe this is a very good topic. And maybe we don't see ourselves as superheroes, supermen and superwomen, but the people whose lives we impact see us that way. So I submitted a proposal, it got accepted, and then I panicked because I'm really busy. But part of my presentation is about how not to panic and do what we have to do. So I'm here, and inshallah you'll benefit from what we're going to talk about. So the title slide is usually very important to me, and it's a really big topic if you start with making the world a better place. It's a big world. But then we break it down, one individual, one organization, and one community at a time. These are my credentials at the bottom: head of school Bayan Academy, president Radiant Hands. I've just become a member of the Hillsborough County School Diversity Council and the Mayor's Muslim Advisory Council. So the first thing to start with is what defines superwoman or superman. I'm not sure I like superhero, but if that's your thing, that's fine. And what exactly it means to everybody. So originally my slide had all my accomplishments in the last 35 years. And then it was like, is that really what makes us a superhero? And then I thought about one of my daughters-in-law who has a bachelor's degree, always wanted to go on with her education, got married, had 4 kids, and is very often frustrated, is that the microphone? That she hasn't done more. And I make it a point every time I visit her or she visits me to tell her that what she has accomplished is amazing. Because every one of her daughters is happy. They're at peace. They know who their parents are. They know that they're loved. They do very well in school. They're athletic. They're involved in all kinds of activities. And I try to show her that just because she's not leading some organization or doesn't have a PhD, doesn't make her any less of a superhero. For those girls, she is the most amazing person on earth. It can be people who overcome disability. They just had the Mohsen session in here before I came in. And if you're not familiar with Mohsen, their goal is to streamline each other. So Mohsen works with children with disabilities and trying to mainstream them into our communities and get people to accept them for what they can do. And our community a lot of times is stuck in culture, and our cultures don't always accept people with disabilities. And I've been working on a remodeling project at our school for the last few months, and one of our construction workers has become one of my superheroes. He's young, A lot of guys his age are not doing anything with their life. They're waiting for somebody else to figure it out for them. He has his own construction company. He's very smart, very hardworking. He has one working leg. And a lot of people look at him and see him as being disabled. He is not disabled. He, I think, is a superhero for everybody who sees him and witnesses what he does. So what kind of superpowers we need to have? What is it that makes every single one in here a superhero? Because everybody is, whether you've become aware of it or not. There's a superpower waiting to be unleashed inside of you. And what made me accept the opportunity to speak was one of my students. He's 7 years old. I walked into his second grade class a few months ago. I was observing a teacher, and the teacher was doing an amazing science lesson. And then all of a sudden, everybody started getting up and moving their desks and moving their chairs. And I'm like, what are you guys doing? They said, well, she's going to show a video, and we have to all face the TV. And I'm like, okay. So I said, everybody sit in your seats. And I walked up, I pulled the TV monitor out, I turned it in their direction. Oh my gosh, how did you do that? I said, I have superpowers. And then one of the boys stood up, and he's like, serious as a heart attack. Sister Magda, I have superpowers when I rely on Allah. This 7-year-old boy had discovered the secret to the universe. There are many, many, many adults who don't realize that they have superpowers when they rely on Allah. And after he said that, I realized that I always knew it. I just never thought about it that way. Throughout my life, the only way I got through life was relying on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it's really believing, not just somehow believing, not just I think it may work, so I'm going to try. It's really believing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala supports us, He guides us, and He strengthens us when we turn to Him. And my whole life is based on that. I got through college in 3 years with 3 kids by the age of 21. People used to call me Superwoman, it used to bother me. Like, why are they calling me that? I did nothing on my own. Every exam, I would turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and He would get me through that exam. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, I am as my servant thinks or expects I am. If he draws near to me a hand's length, I draw near to him an arm's length. And if he comes to me walking, I go to him at speed. We have to believe. I don't know if you know the ayahs in the Quran and the hadith that say Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will reward us if we believe that He will reward us. If we just do things blindly and hope maybe He'll reward us, He may not. We have to know that He will. We have to believe that He will, and then He will come to us and He will help us solve our problems. So this was my study plan in college. I studied for some of my exams, some of them I didn't, because I had babies and they were crying and I never always had time to do it. I had a sister who used to come help me study. When she was visiting, I did really well, and when she wasn't, I didn't. But by the end, I did well overall. Before every exam, I read Surah Yasin and prayed 2 rak'ah. And I will tell you just one example of a comparative anatomy exam I took. I swear to you, I read 1/3 of the material. Next day, I'm in school, in college, all the students are talking about what's on the exam, and I'm like, oh my gosh, there is no way I'm gonna pass. I have no idea what they're talking about. We get into the lecture hall, passes out the exams. Every single question on that exam came from the 1/3 of the material that I read. So my first thought was, how on earth did Allah change that test for only the questions that I knew the answers to? And then I realized that wasn't it. What He had done was guided me to study what He knew was already on the test. So the test wasn't going to change, But I was praying really, really hard, and he guided my brain to study what I needed to know. And I think I got a 98, and the other students didn't do so well, and they couldn't figure it out because they saw that I really hadn't known a lot of the information. And consistent and ongoing dua. I lost a slide somewhere. Okay, so this slide, somewhere in my presentation, is my superpower number 2. And it's relying on people, oh there it is, surrounding myself with capable people who enable me to do my job in the best and most efficient way possible. When it was going through college, it was my sisters. They used to help me get through my classes. In my jobs, it is the people around me. I do not do all the work that people think I do. We just finished a conference August 3rd in Tampa. We had 220 attendees. There's no way I could have pulled it off on my own. I had a team of maybe 35, 40 volunteers who helped me do the job. So the superpower is not really having the volunteers or having the people. It's finding them and recognizing them and adding them to my team. So the first thing is identifying your needs when you're looking for people. What do you need? Identifying people's strengths and then empowering them to do their jobs. A lot of people in a lot of companies can hire amazing people with amazing talent, but then they don't give them the freedom and the authority to do their jobs. They micromanage. They want to get involved in every part of the decision-making process. So the people that they hired are not really being utilized. And because they're not being utilized, they can't make that person's job easier. So then we look at the current state of our individuals, our organizations, and our communities. Who would say that everybody is doing well? Everybody in our communities is financially well off. Everybody has food before they go to bed. Everybody has good health care. Nobody is suffering. And the world is an amazing place to be. Would anybody say that that's the condition of our current world or our communities? We know that that is not our state. We know that our communities locally are struggling. We know that there are individuals within our community that nobody is aware of, that are struggling in silence. And we know that the world is burning. And I don't mean the Amazon. We're talking Kashmir and Burma and Bangladesh and South America. The world is not in a good place. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, through his Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, teaches us the parable of the believers in their affection, mercy, and compassion for each other is that of a body. When any limb aches, the whole body reacts with sleeplessness and fever. So sometimes, actually a lot of times, I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive me because I sleep really well. I do, I sleep really well. And it's really a blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because I wouldn't be able to function the next day if I didn't sleep. So some people may stay up all night and make dua for the people. Some people may stay up all night trying to find solutions. I have to sleep, and then in the morning, I have to get up and I have to work. And so we have an ongoing conversation at home. My husband always says, you know what, you've done enough. 30 years, community service, let somebody else do the job. And I can't because of this hadith. The hadith says that until every single person is not in pain, until every single person is going to bed with a full stomach, we have to keep working. We have to keep finding solutions to relieve their anguish. So that's our task, making the world a better place. And I know a lot of people who don't sleep because they want to make the world a better place. The problem is they're not sleeping because they're anxious. They're scared. They don't know how they're going to do it. How are we going to fix everybody's problems? And so they're not sleeping, but they're not making the world better because they're not coming up with solutions. What we have to understand is that none of us can solve all the problems of the world on our own. None of us can do any good if we become overwhelmed with the state of affairs in the world, in our communities, in organizations, and in ourselves. We have to break the task down. So the first thing we have to do, and this is an exercise, I know people have pens, but I left a piece of paper on the table, and it says, it says the 3 strengths Allah has blessed me with to help me make the world a better place. Is that what it says? Something close? And this is very important, because in our culture, from what I found in my years of teaching and working with teachers, we never want to say what we're good at. I've done this exercise with teachers and they'll tell me it's haram. We can't compliment ourselves. I tell them that we need to identify what strengths we have been blessed with for 2 reasons. One, so that we can thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for those blessings. And the second is so that we can use those strengths to make a difference in the world. And I started to understand that the reason so many people in our community don't do anything is because they don't know what they can do. They don't realize what strengths they have. So I would take a few minutes, if you can think about the 3 strengths that you have that can make the world a better place, and write them down. And by the way, this is a small size, you can stick it in your pocket, your purse, take it with you. They said they wanted to take away from the lecture, so you can actually physically take this away. But take a few minutes and write what your strengths are. And I've had some people, I'm beautiful, I have nice eyes, I know fashion. Those aren't the things that are going to make the world a better place. We want something that's going to make the world better. It can be that you like fashion if you're going to help homeless people dress well. Or you're going to help people going for job interviews dress professionally. Then an eye for fashion is good. It might be you're very good at organizing things. Maybe you're good at making phone calls. Maybe you can make posters and graphic design things for the community when they're having a campaign. But strengths that you have been blessed with by Allah that can help you make a difference in the world. And I've been with people before for an hour and a half and they can't come up with one thing. Which is sad, because usually if you just give me this audience, I could probably give you one thing about each person. Once we identify our own strengths, we want to identify the strengths of those around us. And if you work in an organization, this should be an official procedure you go through. It's in a staff meeting, some kind of executive level meeting, where you sit down and look at every single person in your organization. The problem with this exercise is that if you get to somebody who has no strengths to make your organization better, you have to start asking yourselves, why is this person in my organization? Okay, they may have strengths they're not aware of. Maybe you can work on them, you can optimize them, but everybody in your circle or working with you has to have a strength. Maybe they're just strong, they can carry boxes. They can organize things on the shelves. Everybody has to have something. I interviewed a teacher once and I asked her, what can you do to help our school become better? She said, I don't know. I said, I don't either. And that was the end of our interview. Everybody has to know what they can offer. Sometimes I can tell them what it is, but sometimes you really can't. And I don't always have time to do that kind of training. The third one, again, is to empower the people around you. Let them know they're in charge. I've hired people from other organizations. I put them in leadership positions. And every single time they want to make a decision, they call me. And I'm like, why are you calling me? I hired you to make decisions. Well, the last place I worked, every time I made a decision or made a change, I was yelled at, I was ridiculed, I was told, who gave you the authority? I hire people to make my job easier, not to make it more complicated by having to look after every single person. So if somebody has good skills and you trust them, and if you don't trust them, you shouldn't hire them. But once you trust them, then you need to give them that opportunity to do what they need to do. And this is not only in the job market. This is in our homes. You tell your child you're in charge of folding the laundry, and they're going to do a terrible job the first time. And if you take away the laundry basket and redo them all and say, you know what, you can't do it anymore, you just lost a helper. Empower them, teach them, let them make a mistake a few times. And we've had new people who make terrible mistakes, but then they get better, they learn, your job becomes easier, you can do more things because they're now doing what you used to do. Then you identify the issues that need to be addressed. And one of the biggest problems in our community is we want to do everything at one time. Nothing is good. We need to fix this, and this, and this, and this, and this, and then it becomes so overwhelming. How many things do we fix? Zero. We don't do anything, right? Focus on one thing. Is there a masjid in this representative area here that has a shoe rack with shoes on the rack? Make that your first job. Spend 3 months on it. Identify a need. The AC in the ladies section never works. We need to fix it. Okay? Identify issues in your school, in your home, one at a time that you can work on, which is breaking them down into manageable tasks. I tell people if I have a mountain of issues, I can't take care of that issue. If I break it down into little pieces, I can start knocking them off one by one. They become little anthills instead of mountains. And once they're manageable, we can take care of them. Then we set achievable goals. And you should write them down. A lot of our communities, a lot of our families, all we do is talk, right? I don't like it, what are we gonna do? We don't like this. Next week it's the same thing, next month it's 3 years later, and we have the same issues. We need to set achievable goals. And then consciously acknowledge the achievement of those goals. Anybody want to take a stab at what that means? What are the young men in the back? You guys are smart back there. What does that mean? Give me a goal. What do you plan to finish before Tuesday? Yes, sir. By the way, he's the one who moved everybody around. He's going to be a really good. Well, I mean, you have 3 days. You want to accomplish anything between now and Tuesday? Because you don't have school Monday, right? Yeah. Okay, so what would you like to accomplish? One goal. Here. Anywhere, somewhere between now and Tuesday. Pick something. Have dinner tonight. Have dinner tonight? Okay. What would you like to do? Yes, sir. You're in a party. What's your goal? He's embarrassed. What is your goal, sir? When is your presentation due? When is it due? Tuesday, okay. So once you finish making your presentation or preparing it, you should consciously acknowledge that, which means tell somebody, you know what, I'll give you my email ad, you can email me. I just finished my presentation. If nobody's there, say it out loud. And if nobody's there, they can't make fun of you because you're talking to yourself. Okay? Why is it important to acknowledge our achievements? Anybody know some of the older people? They're really young, so anybody over 20 is probably older. Anybody older who can tell me why it's so important? Yes, ma'am.
It helps to get rid of the negative thoughts.
Yes, it gets rid of negative thoughts. What else does it do? Yes. That's a very scientific answer. Yes, it does. So how many, yes, sir?
What did you say? I didn't get it.
Oh, it produces dopamine in your system, which gives you that positive lift. Same thing chocolate does, but healthier. A lot of people, whether you're students, adults, business people, any field you're in, we get to the end of the day sometimes and we feel very frustrated that we have not done anything. There are so many students I talk to. What did you learn today? Nothing. What did you do? Nothing. I work with a lot of people who get very frustrated. I've been working so hard and I haven't accomplished anything. I make them write lists. And when they write the list, they discover that they've accomplished a huge amount. They become conscious of what they're accomplishing. And when you accomplish goals, you feel good about yourself. You feel, you know what? I did it. Now I can do something else. And for me, I'm very busy. Busier than I probably should be. But Allah gave me this work, so I'm busy. So to me, it's very important, because I really want to feel like I accomplished something. And I sometimes just say it out loud, and I look very silly when I accomplish my goals. So my daily goals are very basic. I set them about 11 years ago. I'm thinking to revisit them. They still work pretty well, but it's been a long time. So my daily goals are to learn something new every single day, to do a good deed, and to help solve a problem. So I have a granddaughter who's 5, and she laughed, and she says, "Huh, you're old. You still learn something new every day?" I said, "Yes, ma'am, I do. I have to learn something new every day, or my day has been wasted." If you go through a 24-hour period and have learned nothing, you have just wasted a day of your life. And if you're my student, you better learn every single hour one piece of information, or my teachers have not done their job. The second thing is to do a good deed. And it can be anything. And people at the grocery stores think I'm crazy. Because I'll open the door, I'm like, you know what? I did my good deed for the day. And they look at me like, what? I did, but I acknowledge it. If I do nothing else, I just did my good deed for the day. Let somebody get in front of you at the grocery store. Let somebody go in ahead of you. Do a good deed. And these are my goals. They don't have to be your goals. And they're easy to, I had that be easy, because I have to feel good about myself or I get very frustrated. And finding solutions. So one of my students asked, is it even possible that there are enough problems in the world that we can find a solution every single day? So when you walked in here till now, I solved a problem. What was it? Yes, ma'am, I moved the microphones, right? I solved a problem. So I just learned something new. I did a good deed because I threw away 10 empty water bottles before you walked in. And I found a solution to a problem. So in less than an hour, I've completed all my goals. Does that mean I'm just going to go to sleep? No, but now I'm not frustrated. Now I know at least I achieved 3 things in this last hour. So it's very important to set deeds for yourself. And one of the things you're going to do is, I'll turn the paper over that I gave you, and you're going to list 3 daily goals. We'll spend a few minutes. Think about 3 things that are very easy to achieve, that you can really be happy with at the end of the day if you did them. 3 things. If you don't think of one, that's okay, but I'm thinking we can think of 3 daily goals. People who are like really into memorizing Quran, they'll list how many ayahs they want to finish every day. People who have bad tempers, one of their goals is not to yell for a whole hour. It can be anything. And you know, nobody can tell you what it is, because you know yourself more than anybody else. So we want to set our daily goals. This is for us individually. Once we learn to set them for ourselves, then we can set them for whatever organization we're in. We can set them for our community. We can set them for a larger community. And Muslims should never think of their community as only the Muslim community. We have to look outside of our masjid and our Islamic school and our circle of neighbors and friends who are Muslim. So as busy as I am, and I don't want to take on any more responsibilities, that's why I agreed to serve on this Mayor's Council for Diversity and the Hillsborough County Schools Diversity Council, because we need to show the non-Muslim community that as Muslims, we have solutions to their problems. And they're not their problems. How many, you guys in the back, you guys go to Islamic school or public school? Anybody here in public school? Okay. So out of 5 young men, 4 of them are in public school. Public schools are our issue. We can't say public schools are not our issue. 93% of all Muslim children in the United States are in public schools. We can't say we don't care what happens in public schools. A lot of our Muslim communities in public housing We can't say we don't care about the poverty laws in our community. A lot of our Muslim sisters are in abuse shelters. We can't say that's not my business. But a lot of people in our Muslim community stay in the Muslim community. And they don't think about all those other things because it's too hard to deal with. But if every person picks one thing to focus on, so if you really care about abused women, maybe it's going to be the domestic shelter, the domestic abuse shelter. If it's a legal issue, if it's an orphanage, I just discovered there's an orphanage right down the street from where we live for foster kids, but they stay there up to 2 years. Anything that is of interest to you, pick one. The problem is sometimes we pick too many, and then we can't do anything, so then we become frustrated and overwhelmed. Everybody finish their daily goals? Willing to share something? Yeah? I love you. You're going to join my team whenever you move to Tampa, inshallah. Yes, ma'am. What are your goals?
One of my goals is to, I'm a mother of 4, and to ask my children about the needs and their accomplishments
Yes.
each day.
Yes.
To help build their confidence.
Yes.
As a child, so that when they become an adult, they already have that, they have their superpowers, and they
Yes.
can go out at an early age and positively impact them.
And that is very important because a lot of people will tell you in Islam you have to be humble, right? Which means I can't say what I'm good at. And you have to know what you're good at and be strong without being arrogant. There are two different things. Strength and confidence are over here. Arrogance is over here. If we are not strong and confident, we cannot lead. We cannot solve problems. We can't even take care of ourselves.
And I know that from experience.
Yes.
So that's why I'm wanting to instill that into my children as early
Yes.
as possible.
Yes.
So that they're not waiting like me to my 30s
To figure out what it was.
And figure out what I can do to help our society.
And is 30 too late?
It's not too late.
It is never too late. I tell people until I'm 6 foot underground and no longer breathing, it is never too late. We always have time to learn and to grow. Yes, brother. Yes, please.
My daily goals, you're saying, right?
Yes.
I'm visiting from San Francisco, California, and I'm 80 years of age.
MashaAllah. I hope I look as good when I'm 80.
And from the last 45 years, I've been doing interfaith work.
Yes.
And when I came over here, I never saw any speaker on interfaith from Hindus or Buddhists, and they have the world's population.
Yes.
They have the world's population as Hindu and Buddhists.
So why do we not talk to them?
No, so I went and talked to them.
Okay.
No, I saw some people say, why don't you invite them?
What was their answer? What does that mean?
No answer.
No answer. Why do we not interact with certain people?
You know, they have the word. They
But
do.
why don't we, yes sir, why don't we interact with them? Why don't we like them? Have we ever interacted with them to decide if we like them or not? Yes? So you don't like Hindus as a whole because you just don't like them? Okay, that's a very interesting statement. It's a very unfair statement, but it's your opinion and it's fine for you. So the problem is if we never interact with people, we never get to know them. We never realize that there are some human factors that we all share. What is it? You didn't mean Hindus.
No, I didn't understand your question.
Ah, okay. So that's why I keep talking because they're like, oh, is that what you mean? Oh, no. So what did you mean? I'm sorry.
I thought you meant like, I don't like someone talking.
Okay, so is that the solution?
Yeah.
You think?
Yeah.
So this is what I tell my teachers. It's easy to talk to people you like. It's easy to teach smart kids. It's easy to have a conversation with people who are non-argumentative. It doesn't mean you have any skill whatsoever. Anybody can do that because they're nice and they're not going to argue and they're smart. So it really doesn't show that you have skill in anything. I had a student come to me and say, so there's this school and they charge $30,000 a year for tuition and they only take the top 10% of the student population. Isn't it amazing that all their graduates can go to Harvard? I said, no, they'd be stupid if they couldn't get into Harvard. You're taking a lot of better be able to get them into Harvard, right? So if you don't like somebody, give them salam, say hello, say good morning, break those barriers. Because once we break those barriers, one person at a time, we're making the world a better place. It is very hard for somebody to hate you if you smiled and said good morning to them. Okay? So I do two things at my school, and it's from Islam. Ifsha is salam, wa itam al-ta'am, which is spreading salam, which is not just saying salam, it's peace, and feeding people. It is very hard to give somebody a chocolate chip cookie and then have them yell at you. They just can't do it. It's good. If they don't like chocolate chip, give them a cappuccino, something that they like. You win them over. People don't argue when they're eating a good meal. People don't argue when they're smiling at each other. So every single person can make the better place better a little at a time. Do you have something, sir, you wanted to say? Yes, sir, please. That's fine, you did your job. And you know what? If you have a house that has a drip by the side of the house over your driveway, after a few months, few years, you end up with a depression, right? You may never win that person over, but that's not your job. Your job is to smile and say good morning. And 90% of the people will respond. There are people who are just not happy. They may have issues you don't know about. It may have nothing to do with you. They may just be mean. Don't make yourself that person. And other people will see it, and people get affected. But you have to start small. We're not going to change, well, I don't like the way she, it's not about that. Just be nice. And texting, the one good thing I like about texting, besides it, it's the easiest way to get my sons to know what time dinner is that you don't have to see the person's response. When we talk, you might give me a funny look, and I'm going to misinterpret that look, or you may get really mad. But when I text and I don't see you, I don't know if you got mad. And you don't have to respond. And you can look at it later, and then look at it again. And by the 10th time, maybe like, you know what, maybe they're not so bad. Maybe by the 10th message, you send a smiley face back. And maybe you never respond. But we have to make it our job to try. So this is what everybody has to answer. What is your role in making the world a better place? And what will you do? And it should start the minute you walk out of here. Some people, you walk through somewhere you don't know, you just keep blinders on your eyes, you walk straight, you don't look at anybody, you don't say anything. Some people smile at everybody they see. Pick who that person is going to be. Sometimes you're just so deep in thought. And the way I know that I'm making an impact on my own students is when they remind me to smile. Because I'll be very serious one day, they'll go, Sister Magda, smile. And I smile. Because when we frown, it makes the world a worse place, whether we intend to do it or not. When I'm not happy, everybody who sees me becomes unhappy. It's just, that's how it is, it's contagious. So the things to keep in mind is just identify the needs, identify your strengths and the strengths of others, and by the way, you cannot identify the strengths of others if you can't identify yours. So teachers who are the most negative with their students are the ones who are hardest on themselves. The ones who can find the good in themselves can find the good in other people. Set small, achievable goals and acknowledge the achievements, whether they are yours or they are the other person's. So I had students once, they were in 3rd grade. I think their average was 30% in everything. And I met with a mom. It's amazing how some moms just think their kids will never get better. They're just not going to be ever good students. And I'm like, you know what, let's set a plan. 5 to 7% improvement every year. It's like, oh my gosh, they'll never get better. 5% a year, they're at 30. By 8th grade, they made the first B ever in their life. By 10th grade, they were on honor roll. They graduated with honors. But if we had said in 3rd grade, I want them making A's in 4th grade, That's a huge improvement. And people look at you like you're strange, but you know what? They're happy. And they get better. I think they finished college last year. So this is my message for the day. And we are way ahead of schedule and time. They gave me, I don't know why the afternoon sessions are longer, but unleash your superpowers and change the world. And I don't know if we can have discussion. I didn't think it would be that we finished this early. We can have discussion. I don't know if anybody would like to add something. Someone who had... Oh, do you want to share the other two goals? Yes. You shared one was interfaith with people that other people don't talk to. Yes.
Peace, establishing peace in the world.
That's a daily goal?
Every day.
Okay, how do we do that?
You interact with people other than Muslims.
Okay.
You got to make peace with the Hindus of India.
So besides Hindus, who here interacts with people besides Muslims outside of your job? Okay. 3 people. Oh, there you are. Who's there in the back? Where do you interact with people? She'll answer. Does your daughter want to answer? Where do you interact with people, sir?
School.
So outside of school, because school's like a job. You have to go to school.
Groceries, store.
Okay, how do you interact with people who aren't Muslim? Okay, do you care? Do you care? Okay, good. So when they tell you had an awful day, what do you do?
I relate to it.
Very good, very good. Future leader of the world. Most people, if you ever ask people, I say, how are you? And you say something like, oh, I didn't really want you to tell me how you felt. I just was being nice. I'm one of those people, if I say, how are you? People cry. All of a sudden, they, oh, she really cares. And then I'm like, I'm in trouble because people think I'm hurting people. Everywhere I go, people start to cry. But we ask caring. And the next time they see something about Muslims that is terrible, they, you know what? I know this guy at a grocery store, he's always nice and he always says something polite. Not all Muslims are bad. Anybody else interact with non-Muslims outside besides the brother who does peace? Yes, ma'am. She does what? You want to come up here and talk so we can hear you? MashaAllah. You say hello to everybody. MashaAllah. Very good. How old are you?
She just turned 6, so I had to loan her a car from like the lady was driving me back.
Okay.
So basically, I didn't even interact with her. You had to pick her up. She came in there, she started having a full conversation. She's like, Mom, what's her name? I'm like,
I don't know.
her name. So, she goes and she interacts with people, and she talks to anybody.
Alhamdulillah. It's really, that's the brother is saying. You just have to reach out. A lot of the problem in our community is we're afraid to reach out and we don't want to talk. And a lot of the problem also is that if people start asking us questions about Islam, we may not know what the answers are. And that's what we're afraid of sometimes. Yes, brother?
I think when you said how you interact with non-Muslims,
Yes.
my understanding you are kind of implying that the other person who is non-Muslim knows that you are Muslim. That's not the case. Okay?
That's true, if they don't know you. But a lot of times in your neighborhood, they know if they see you go to the masjid. But a lot of times, especially men or women who don't wear hijab, you're right, they wouldn't know you that you're Muslim. Okay?
Because they will just think that you are a nice person.
So how do you change that?
I mean,
Because we want them to know.
say living in Texas, for example,
Okay?
people may think I'm Mexican,
Yes. My son, they always spoke to him in Spanish. Used to bother him. They thought he was Mexican.
So the thing is, it's not implying that we are giving them the message that, oh, we are very good Muslims. I think this is a misnomer.
So how can
What we are portraying is we are a good human being.
we are a good human being.
The other person doesn't know you're a Muslim.
So in your job, do people know you're Muslim?
Yes, well, not all of them, but yes.
Okay, so the ones who know you're Muslim, whatever you do reflects on Islam. And even if they don't know you're Muslim, by being nice, you're helping make the world a better place. Anybody who's nice is helping make the world a better place. We just want to make sure that we don't close off because we don't know. And Islam, it's really an issue of education. We have to educate ourselves. And young people need to be educated. They need to know. I used to ask my students, why are you Muslim and not Christian? Because Muslims don't lie. Well, Christians don't either. Well, we don't steal. Well, Christians don't either. Well, and I'm like, you have to have a better reason than that. And if they don't know why they're Muslim, when they get into that conversation, they're going to decide, I'm not Muslim. Because I have no reason to be Muslim over another religion. So it becomes, as adults, it's very important that we have an understanding that we have to educate our youth. We have to educate ourselves as adults. I know adults who don't know why they're Muslim. My name is Muhammad. My parents were Muslim. We came from Pakistan or Egypt or Syria, and we're Muslim. And they're adults. There's a book that was mailed to everybody in Tampa with a Muslim name, and it's called 10 Muslims Who Love Jesus. And you look at it, and you think about Islam and how Islam loves Isa, Masih ibn Maryam, and it's not. It's about 10 Muslims who converted to Christianity. And they're sending it to all the Muslims in the community to convince them that, you know what, if you love Jesus, you should be Christian. And a lot of Muslims don't know the answer because they don't know what Islam says about Masih Isa ibn Maryam. Christians don't know either what their religion says about Masih. But a lot of them do, and they work on our kids and on our population. And kids in public high schools are becoming members of Fellowship of Christian Athletes and Fellowship of Christian Students because they're getting treated really nice. And we have to find a way to be nice, to interact with the non-Muslim community, but to protect our kids and educate them. Yes, sir.
Can you recommend a book or reading for children to know why they are Muslims? Well, that's a challenge.
I don't think it's been written yet. I think the closest thing is going to be, I think it's called When Boys Meet Boys to Men, and it's written by Habib Qadri in Chicago. Boys to Men, and it talks about a lot of misconceptions. There's another book Habib Qadri wrote, I cannot remember off the top of my head, but I can find it for you, and it's available. They're available as PDFs online. One of them is 600 pages. You can actually download it and print it. I mean, they're massive books. It's really hard, though, because a lot of parents don't know. And so in order to teach our youth how to communicate with kids in their high school, we have to know what Christians believe. We have to know what Jews believe. We have to know what Hindus believe. We have to know what atheists believe. In our biology class last week, I was teaching about asymptomatic and symptomatic, abiotic and biotic. And then I said, okay, let's talk about atheist. Because theist means believes in God, and atheist means doesn't believe in God. And then we started doing Al-Masih Isa ibn Maryam, and how does that translate into Jesus Christ the Messiah? And I drew a cross on the board, and they're like, you know, if anybody walks by and looks into this, they're going to think you're doing a Bible study class. I said, it's not Bible study. This is what is in the Quran. And you have to understand this so that you can tell people we are Muslims, and this is what Islam says about Christianity. So it's a lot of conversations that you need to be having with your kids. Unfortunately, a lot of the Islamic schools are afraid of those conversations because they're afraid kids will leave Islam. Kids don't leave Islam because they learn about other religions. They leave because you didn't teach them about the other religions, and when they find out from somebody else, they go, oh, those people are really nice. I like them. I'm going to hang out with them. Or they see something that we shouldn't have in our community. They see racism. Anybody here think we don't have racism in the Muslim community?
We do.
It's bad. It's deep. We have racism.
Yes.
And it's among Pakistanis and Indians. Oh my gosh, ever call a Pakistani an Indian or an Indian a Pakistani? You get in trouble. You call a Syrian a Palestinian or a Palestinian a Syrian, you get in trouble. You talk about, oh my gosh, somebody who's dark-skinned and light-skinned, we get in trouble. We have deep racism, but our community doesn't want to talk about it. And so when people outside of the community accept somebody who's not accepted in the Muslim community, then they're like, well, why should I stay in the Muslim community? So that's one of the things, I don't know how we got to this topic, but that's one of the things we really have to work on to make the world a better place, to make our community stronger. What Mohsen was talking about organization where if you see a child with Down syndrome or who's severely autistic walking into the masjid, a lot of masajid will not welcome them because they're disruptive, or they make funny noises, or they don't walk right, or they just look funny. So getting over those biases we have and being able to talk about them and accept them all will help us become a stronger community. And again, it's one person at a time. So I was telling the panel that was here earlier, we had a student at our school who had Asperger's, and if you're not familiar with that, it's on the autism spectrum. And he had severe anxiety attacks. He was graduating from high school, and none of the boys wanted to read Quran at the graduation, except him. And every administrator, you can't let him do it. You cannot let him read Quran. He's gonna get up on stage, he's gonna have a panic attack, people from the community to come to our graduation, he's gonna embarrass us in front of everybody. And so he picked somebody to do the translation of the Quran, one of the girls in his class. She has an autistic brother. So she knows what it's like. And she says, you know what, I don't think you should do 20 ayahs, because I can't translate 20. It'll really be hard for me. I can only do 3. So she limited him to 3 ayahs. And we got to the graduation, my 2 administrators were still saying, you can't let him go on stage. What if he can't do it? And I said, well, what if he can? And he got up and he did an amazing job. And his mom was in tears the whole graduation. He wasn't a perfect qari, but he was brave enough to stand on stage and do his best. And this classmate of his was kind enough to guide him to do a very small amount so that he wouldn't get to the point where he got anxious and had a panic attack. So those are small things that gave him confidence. He's almost finished with college now. But these people, if we do not give them a chance, if we're not kind to them, if we don't embrace them and welcome them, they will leave our communities. They will become very frustrated. Yes, ma'am.
I wanted to speak about, you asked why are some Muslims or do Muslims know why they're Muslims?
Yes.
And the people that I want to talk about are new Muslims,
Yes.
converts, and my name is John, by the way, and I'm with Taifa, and we help out people with the whole idea of
Taifa is an organization?
It is an organization, and we focus on social isolation, especially for our reverts and our converts who converted to Islam because they know and understand what Islam does.
Yes.
I'm a recent convert myself. I converted about 2 years ago. So for those people, what can we do to help them so that they don't leave Islam? Because they know what Islam is, but what can we do to better help them? And part of that is embracing them and bringing them
Okay, so what does Taiba mean?
I believe kindness.
What is Taiba also? Who knows what Taiba is? It's the name of Al-Madinah al-Munawwara. It's called Taiba. Okay? And the people of Medina were the Ansar. And the Ansar, when the Muslims came from Mecca, they welcomed them into their homes and gave them half of everything they had. And I will be very honest, I don't know a single person today who would do that. We might give them money or a department for them, but we're not going to let them into our homes and give them one of our cars. So Taiba is a very good word because it symbolizes the Ansar and what they would do. So the problem with reverts, not problem with reverts, problem with us and reverts, is that they're not welcomed. They have a big party when they become Muslim. We have a big dinner, we welcome them, we bring them to abayas, hijabs, everybody makes it, it's on, sometimes on YouTube, sometimes on WhatsApp. And a year later, on Eid, they're having Eid by themselves. And Jummah, they're by themselves. And on vacation, when it's Christmas vacation, I'm sorry, some people say I'm going to go to hell because I say Christmas. It is Christmas. And all of their family, who is still Christian, is celebrating Christmas, and they don't have anything to do with her. And she doesn't have anybody to spend that vacation with. It becomes a very depressing and lonely environment. So one step at a time, and it takes effort. And I really know how to do it for us, for our family. This is Maryam, she's my niece. She knows at every Eid event there are people at brunch who are not related to us. And people just got used to it because I see them and I'm like, you guys have any family in Tampa? No. You have any plans for Eid? Meet us at 11. And people are like, and now they don't even ask anymore. There's always 3 or 4 people with us at Eid who are not related to us in any way, shape, or form. If every single family invited one person over and made them feel like they were it would be much easier to stay strong. So in our community, they have a monthly revert luncheon. I think almost 100 people attend now every month. They do all kinds of events. And some people don't like those events, by the way. People who've been Muslim for 30 years, they're 50 years old, but they've been Muslim for 30, they don't like to go to those events. And they're like, no, I'm just Muslim. And that's fine. But for the people who don't have family, if everybody can adopt a person at your special events or picnics, it makes things a lot easier. Because reverts have lots of issues. Because their families don't always, usually do not accept the fact that they've left whatever religion they grew up in. And now they wear hijab, and now they don't eat pork, and now they don't do this. It's hard. But every community has to do that. And if you don't do it as a community, individuals. So if you know people, recommend it to them. For Eid, if you're having a big event, invite 1 or 2 people over. It's not about the food, it's about feeling like you're a part of a family. And that's, I think, the biggest problem for people who become Muslim, because we don't have Ansar anymore.
And you have some reverts and converts who leave Islam because
Yes.
they don't have that connection.
Yes.
They don't have those people who are reaching out.
Or
to them.
they walk into the masjid, they start to pray, and they're not praying right. And people start yelling at them. Or, oh my gosh, look at your feet, or look at whatever, you're not. And they're like, oh my gosh, why would I even go anymore? So we started an organization a few years ago. It has nothing to do with reverts or converts. It's called Radiant Hands. It's for women who've gone through domestic violence or who are divorced, widowed, somehow need to be empowered. We have 130 volunteers. We have 3 staff members and 130 volunteers. Our volunteers are people, I've been in Tampa 30 years. I have never seen them before. They don't go to the masjid. They're all Muslim. And when I talked to them, why have I never met you? Said, I never felt comfortable in the masjid. I always felt judged.
Are these born Muslims?
These are born Muslims, but maybe she doesn't wear hijab. Or maybe she's from Iran. Or maybe she has a different viewpoint on something. Or maybe there's something. Or maybe your husband works in the wrong line of work. But somehow these women never felt welcome in the Muslim community. Even, some of them are reverts. One of them is Chinese. She became Muslim as an adult. But most of them were born Muslim. They just never felt, so it's not just reverts who aren't always welcome, it's anybody who doesn't fit the mold that we have set for Muslims. So if it's teenagers, and they're acting goofy like those guys were who walked out, sometimes you just get kicked out of the masjid, instead of being given a role to play, and then they're not gonna go back. So we outcast a lot of people in our community. And so taking that one step, each individual making a goal. I talk to people, if I see somebody in the masjid, I'll say, Assalamu alaikum. And sometimes they'll say, you know what, I've been coming for 3 years. You're the first person who said Assalamu alaikum to me. Because now our communities are so big, people's uncles and aunts and cousins, everybody lives, you go back 50 years, there were no Muslims. Right? So I don't care what color you were, what country you came from. If you were Muslim, we used to hang on to you because nobody had family here. Now people have family. They don't need anybody anymore. So they don't talk to them anymore. And that's a problem. And it's not only between Muslims and new Muslims. It's between everybody. We don't always welcome new people. And this young man, his method of just saying, hi, how are you? That makes a big difference to people. And we don't realize it. I reached out to somebody, what's today, Saturday?
Yes.
Thursday night. I live in Tampa, she lives in Boston. I haven't seen her in a few years. I happened to meet 2 people in Tampa who knew her. I'm like, you know what, let me just call her, see how she's doing. I called her, I found out that last year her husband had died, and I did not know. She was working in a school that she had founded, and she'd been pushed out of the school. I think she was too old for them, but she was really depressed. When I talked to her, she said, you know what, I am so glad you reached out, because I haven't known how to reach out to other people. So sometimes we don't know, it's just a small thing. Even if you have a list of 20 people in your contacts, once a week, call one of them. By the end of 20 weeks, you'll have called all 20. It takes 3 minutes. Assalamu alaikum, how are you? You doing okay? And you know what, sometimes they're not doing okay. Sometimes they need $100 to pay their electric bill. Sometimes, like this sister, somebody had just passed away in their family. Sometimes they've lost a job. And sometimes they want to talk to somebody. They want to know that somebody was thinking about them. So about 2 years ago, I started something. I know a lot of really good people, alhamdulillah. And I would talk about them to other people. And then why am I talking to other people about how good they are? So I started texting them to say, by the way, I was thinking about you today. You've been amazing. And it makes a difference in their life. I mean, it's nice that I'm saying good things about them to other people, but they're never going to know that. They're never going to know how much I appreciate who they were. So you have a big difference in people's lives. Because what we have, other people may not have. And we may need that connection. Because we realize that, you know what, in the end, we're all connected. And like the brother said, reach out to people, talk to them, and they will talk to other people. And then you get together over food, and then you become really a community. And it's not the Hindu community, the Sikh community. On our street, within a quarter of a mile, we have a Sikh temple, we have 3 churches, and we have a masjid. A quarter of a mile. That's like not even the length of this convention center. I mean, and so we try and do events together. We try and meet. We do open houses. So when there was a fire, somebody started a fire in our masjid, the church next door immediately gave us their gymnasium for Jummah because we had built that relationship. And so when we need them, they will come to our support. But then when they need us, we should also come to their support, right? A lot of times, this is an interesting concept. So we did an interfaith dinner at the church, and one of the brothers decided it's Maghrib, we have to all get up and pray Jama'ah in their gymnasium. And it was very awkward. And my question was, if we were in the masjid and they were here for dinner, would we have let them do a Christian prayer service in our masjid? No. No way. No way. It wasn't going to happen. Because we're Muslim and Christians can't do that in here. But when we go to their church, we want to get up and pray Jama'ah. Okay? How many masajid are in America?
Over 2,000?
Thousands. There's not a church in Saudi for all the Christians who live there. And it's against the law to have a church. But you know what? When they come here, we want to build a masjid. How does that work?
Very good.
Because we're the chosen ones, right? Everybody has to be good to us, but we don't have to be good to them. All the religions have to accept us, but we don't have to be nice to them. We're not saying become them. We're just saying be nice to them. We don't have to agree with people to respect them and to treat them with kindness. We don't always agree with our own kids. Look what we put up with, right? Our own family, we don't agree with half the time. But we're good to them. But for some reason, when they're different religion or different ethnicity, we forget that they're human. And that's when we have all this conflict. We had a restaurant for a very short, we had 1 year, we had a restaurant. And this guy used to come in every Thursday, older gentleman with his wife. And then one day he says, by the way, I'm Jewish. I'm like, and? What should I do with you? He says, well, is that okay? I'm like, sure, it's okay. If all Jews and Muslims got together over a nice dinner, we wouldn't have war, right? We'd be okay, because you can't have dinner with somebody and then go shoot them later. But when we put up the barriers and we put up the walls, we have conflict. And I'm not saying accept what they believe, because that's happening in our community way too much, right? Homosexuality is okay, we're gonna be nice to them. No, we're gonna be nice to them, but it's not okay. We have to keep our Islam. We don't give in on what we believe, but we do have to be kind, because that's what Islam teaches us. My most favorite ayah, I think a couple of years ago, became the one, oh gosh, I can't remember what it is. That if we can't agree on what we believe, then we just say, I believe in Allah, and we turn and we walk away. It doesn't say we fight, it doesn't say we argue, it doesn't say we hate them, it just says, this is what I believe, and we turn and walk away. And that's what we want to learn, inshallah. Yes, sir?
I think that's what I
No, it's not, that's, I know what you're thinking, but it's in Surah Al-Baqarah, I think. But I can't remember, right now, at the end of the day, my mind isn't working as well as it should. But yes, lakum dinukum waliya din. That is Surah Al-Kafirun. But there's another ayah that just says, tell them that I believe, and then walk away. It doesn't say go to war with them. It doesn't say cut them off. It doesn't say be angry with them. But a lot of times we think it's our responsibility to make everybody Muslim. It's not. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala used to tell the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, إِنَّمَا عَلَيْكَ الْبَلَاغُ الْمُبِينُ. It's your job to teach. It's not your job to make them Muslim. Alhamdulillah. So I think we're done, inshallah. Unless anybody wants to discuss anything, we'll keep it like the morning sessions, an hour, inshallah. Jazakumullah khair. And
are you related to some way the bayan in
no,
Southern California?
no. Everybody thinks we are. I have a lot of good friends who are there, but no, we're not related.
That's what I thought.
Alhamdulillah.
I'm from there.
Yes. You work with Sister Amina?